Welcome to From Betrayal to Breakthrough, and here is a mini dose of Dr. Debi where I'm sharing tips, suggestions, strategies, and sometimes just motivation to have you move past your betrayal once and for all. Hi, it's Dr. Debi. If you're a coach, therapist, or health professional, listen up. I know you've seen it before. The deep pain and emotional wounds that come from betrayal. It's heartbreaking, but I'm here to tell you, you can make a real difference. Imagine having the tools to guide your clients through their healing process, helping them move past the devastating effects of betrayal and into a life of transformation. That's exactly why I created the Certified PBT Coach Practitioner Program. And I want to invite you to a free masterclass to show you exactly how it works. In just 1 hour, you'll learn how to expand your expertise, grow your practice, and most importantly, help people who are desperate for this kind of healing. This isn't just another certification. This is an opportunity to change lives. So what are you waiting for? Grab your spot in my free masterclass at thepbtinstitute.com/certification masterclass. You're just one step away from making an enormous impact. I can't wait to see you there. Hi there. So you may know that the PBT Institute founded National Forgiveness Day, celebrated every year on September 1st. In celebration of that, what I've done 2 years in a row is have a 21-day forgiveness journey. And I purposely do this because forgiveness is one of the hardest things we can do, whether it's from something kind of, for some people kind of minor and it's still challenging. But when it comes to something like betrayal, it can be brutal. And I want to dive into what was experienced during the 21 days, more about forgiveness, and see where you stand here. Because for some, forgiveness is a really charged word. There are all kinds of implications that you may have grown up with, like where someone absolutely did you wrong and you were told and you were taught forgive anyway. And it didn't feel right for you, maybe because there was no apology, remorse, regret, anything, taking responsibility. So it felt really wrong. Or maybe you grew up and that was part of your religion or whatever it is. So for some people, forgiveness is so heavily charged. So the first thing I want to go over is the way I look at forgiveness, and maybe this can help you as well. I don't look at it like it has anything to do with the other person. It really is all about the person who chooses to forgive. What you're doing is you're releasing the power that pain has over you. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you a sucker. It doesn't mean you're setting yourself up for it to happen again. It means you value yourself enough to stop lugging around this immense, tremendous pain. Because here's the thing too, it's not just affecting you mentally and emotionally, it's affecting you physically too. So the idea of this 21-day forgiveness journey, and this was the intention last year too. The question was, is it possible to go from angry, bitter, resentful to forgiving and free in 21 days with intention and group support? It was sort of like this experiment, because, and I chose 21 days, not because I want to go live for 21 days, but because it takes 21 days to create a habit. And so I had these brave warriors join me. And maybe some of you listening and watching, you chose to be on the forgiveness journey as well. And the way it worked was, over the course of 21 days, I researched the most powerful stories on forgiveness I could find. I mean, from people who they lost their family in the Holocaust, Rwanda, Nelson Mandela, the Dalai Lama, you name it. I can't think of all of them. There were 21 days, people they lost their children. It was just the most powerful stories. And so that was just to show everybody, if these people can forgive after such horrific things that were done to them, can you? Right? I also had daily quotes and affirmations and activities that had worked for other people, and just an experiential activity for them to work on for the day. And the idea was they had this forgiveness tracker. And I asked them to choose one experience. And I'm sharing this because if you didn't participate in it, you may want to think about this and create your own version of a tracker and create your own 21-day experience. So the columns were, they had to choose one experience. So maybe you want to choose the person who betrayed you. Maybe you want to choose an earlier incident. It could be the boss who passed you up for a promotion. It could be your best friend who shared your secret. It could be the siblings who said, hey, we'll be there for mom and dad one day. And then that day comes, where are they? It could be someone in a position of authority who took advantage of that position. It could be anything. It could be a product or a company where they said this product is good for you, and then you learn, no, it's not, and you get sick because of it. So it could be anything. So what you want to do is come up with what's the one scenario you want to work on over the next 21 days. And then we had the columns, which were, I believe it was review. The first one was review. And by review, I mean, are you even willing to look at this scenario? You may have had something that happened. Let's say you had a fight with a sibling 20 years ago, and that's just the way it is. And you've been keeping it at bay, and you have not been dealing with it, not been looking at it, not looking into it. First of all, you think it's not vying for your attention. Yes, it is. It's there. It's there. It's just you are doing all you can whenever it comes up to push it down, push it aside. So the first column is review. And what that would mean is, are you even willing to review the experience? Are you willing to go back and look at it and possibly see what the other person may have been thinking, what it must be like living in their shoes, what possible other interpretations can be made from the experience? So that was what the first column was for. The second column was release. And by release, I mean, are you willing to let this go? And I'll go over how each one of these things played out. Are you willing to let this go? It's almost like, and I use this example during the 21 days, you're carrying around this 500-pound boulder of pain. And at some point, are you willing just to set it down? Because think about it. If you're carrying around this gigantic boulder, first of all, it's exhausting. And secondly, your arms aren't free to hold anything else. Your hands aren't free to hold anything else. Your eyes aren't free to see anything else because you have this big boulder in your way. So if you're constantly carrying this around, it's preventing you from all you could see in front of you. So the release piece of this was, are you willing to set it down? That was the second column. The third column was, are you willing to rebuild? And by rebuild, I really mean two things. Rebuild this new version of yourself after you've been willing to forgive, right? Having nothing to do with the other person. You've forgiven, and because of that, you feel free. What is it leading you to? Or maybe with that, once you've released it, you've had, let's say, a conversation with someone. You've seen things differently. You're able to renegotiate or have that deep communication that you needed in order to see things very differently, to come to a more mutual understanding where you can rebuild something very new with someone else, whether that's a partner, whether that's a family member, a friend, a coworker, any of it. So we had so many people who they came in with their one experience. And this is what's interesting too. A lot of them had many, and they were like, well, which one do I choose? You choose the one, not the biggest one. Not the biggest one, because you want to feel a win. You want to see what you're able to do, within these 21 days to give you that sense of accomplishment. Like, wow, if I can do this, what else can I do? So what you want to do is you want to choose something, maybe not the biggest betrayal that you just had, but maybe something, where someone slighted you, where someone did something or something happened, or people were choosing things like, let's say, a misdiagnosis or something like that. Choose something, not minimizing that at all. I mean, that's huge, but choose something. So you choose that one thing and then think about it. every single day when you go through whatever it is that you want to go through, to see if you're able to move towards a different way to look at what you've been holding on to all these years. See what you can do to change it. So for example, after, let's say, it was even, I remember there were even a few people within the first week, after going over this every day, hearing these profound stories of forgiveness, hearing these affirmations and these quotes, and doing these experiential activities, all of a sudden, people who weren't even willing to revisit their experience decided, you know what? I'm going to review it. I'm going to revisit it. I'm going to take a look at this. And that takes a lot, because think about it. If you've been just pushing it aside or pushing it down or acting like it's not there, and now you're willing to, and what we say within the PBT Institute, face it, right? That's the first step. Face it, feel it, heal it. And now you're willing to face it. You cannot do something with it if you're not even willing to face it. So let's say, at some point you decide, yes, I'm willing to face this. And you take a look and you revisit it. And from this new perspective, with this intention of working towards forgiveness, now you're not that anything has to happen more than revisit it first, more than review it, but at least you're willing to do that. And now keep a few more days going of more of these experiential activities and doing more of this research and learning about forgiveness. And I was recommending all kinds of books and things too about forgiveness. And now imagine another few days goes by and you're willing to release it. So here you decided it's worth it for you to revisit this experience. And now you realize, from this place of wisdom, from this place of new awareness, you say, you know what am I doing? Why am I hanging on to this? It's creating a suppressed immune system. It's affecting my heart rate, my blood pressure, my everything. This is not, I'm giving this person way too much power. And you decide, I'm releasing it. Just imagine the difference in how you'd feel if you just did that. And that happened to so many people within the second week. They were already releasing something that had such a tremendous hold on them, which now frees them up for something so much different, so much better. So let's say you do this, and whatever timeline it takes you, and the beauty is, it doesn't matter. It just matters that you're moving forward, and I explained this to the group. I said, every single thing you do can only move you in one of two directions: closer or further to every single thing that you want. So if you're doing some kind of effort, moving you closer, inching towards 1 degree at a time, forgiving for your sake, isn't that better for you, for yourself, mentally and physically and emotionally? Okay, so let's say now you've released it. Think of now what you're doing physically alone. Physically, when you've let this go, the energy you've been putting towards this, even though you may not think it was taking up a lot of energetic resources, it was. Now you can use them for your own healing, to create something so much better, so much newer, so much more exciting, something that you're now ready for, because you've let go of something that's been burdening you and has been on the back burner of your mind for a really long time. So now think about it. Now we get to the rebuild part. And like I said, it's rebuild you or rebuild a new relationship with the person that you were doing this forgiveness work on, whether they knew it or not, right? What does that look like? What's so exciting, and what I saw with so many people, was that many of them were rebuilding themselves. And this is such a beautiful opportunity, because it's not like there was anything wrong with them. They weren't bad. They weren't wrong. They weren't anything. But the new feeling they had, the lightness, the freedom, really allowed them to look at things differently. And there were some who, they just felt different. Even with their friend group, they felt lighter, they felt freer. Some were just now all of a sudden, and I hear this all the time, they're like, it's so weird. This, and I know when someone's like, it's so weird. This happened. It's not weird. You're ready for it. When we've cleared this space, we allow for these amazing downloads to start. When you're hanging on to your pain, to your trauma, you don't have access to this stuff. But when it's been cleared, we have access to things. And here's where it's really important. And I see this too. As we leave stage 3, I'm always talking about the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough. As we leave stage 3 and enter into stage 4, it is so common for people to say, the weirdest thing happened, or, wow, I never thought about that. Or, I don't know, I kind of heard this thing and I'm thinking maybe it's the case. And this is exactly what happens when you clear the space. So whether it's through forgiveness, whether you're just moving through the stages and you've actually moved past stage 3 and you're into stage 4, the dust has settled a bit and you're ready for something very new. When I moved into stage 4, remember, the stages weren't formed yet. I was going through the PhD program and it was being discovered as I was sort of my own case study and using all my study participants, asking them these deep, deep, deep questions. And when I found myself moving out of stage 3 and into stage 4, that's when the idea for the PBT Institute showed up. I didn't have access to that earlier. I was busy. I was in my trauma. I was hanging on to my pain. But when we let go and when we release, we have access to these things. And I saw that with week 2, week 3 of the forgiveness journey, where all of a sudden people are looking at things very differently, having different kinds of conversations with the people who did hurt them on a very different level, with new boundaries in place, with new ideas, with new rules, or just with themselves, coming out of this with new boundaries for themselves, or a new way to look at themselves. Wow, you know what? I tolerated this. I'm not going to do that anymore. You know what? I settled for this. I don't want to do that anymore. And all of these new ideas and awarenesses would show up. So if you were to conduct your own 21-day journey, just to throw it out there, what would it look like for you? Choose something, an experience, a person, something that that's weighing on you, that you'd like to forgive. Whatever that is, whatever it is, you choose one thing. Make a piece of paper. You take a piece of paper and you can create something like what we used during the 21-day forgiveness journey, which was simply a column where it was what you were choosing to forgive. You were working on one thing during the entire forgiveness journey over the course of 21 days. The first column was review or revisit. It could be whichever one is more meaningful to you. That's the first column. The second column is release. The third column is rebuild. So the way you would do it would be you choose that one thing, and each day you are working on forgiveness. You're finding mantras and reading books and listening to stories or reading stories, watching videos, whatever it is, to give you the insight you need to truly understand forgiveness on a very different level. And then just mark off. And it's okay if you don't even want to revisit it for the first week or so. Don't worry, it's okay. But on let's say day 8, you decide, you know what, today's the day I'm going to look into this. Then what you would do is you would check off day 8. You would just make a little check mark under revisit, review. That's the first day you're willing to do that. And that's beautiful. And now you continue and you watch more videos or read more things or do more activities or something. And then you keep checking every single day. And now maybe you find on day 12, you're ready to release it. Now you check the release column. So you have from nothing to day 8, right? On day 8, you had a check mark in the review column. You kept going with day 9, 10, 11. And then on day 12, with your check marks. And then on day 12, you're willing to release it. Now the check mark goes under the release column and you're willing to release it. And you keep working on it. Keep going. Now that you've released it, what is it opening up you to? What is it allowing you to feel, to experience, to explore? And Are you willing now to rebuild you? Is there potential to rebuild with that person in a very different way? Then you would check off whatever day you get to that on your tracker, on the own tracker that you've made up. So the idea is, when it comes to forgiveness, again, if you find it's a charged word for you, you get the benefit of reassessing what every single thing means. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time to take a look and say, forgiveness used to mean that I don't speak my mind, that that my needs don't matter, that I just accept whatever's given to me, that I'm setting myself up for things to happen again, that it's just my lot in life. Whatever meaning was created for you. And now you take a look and you say, I no longer choose to have that as the meaning. It doesn't make sense to me anymore. Now understand, forgiveness is one of those words where it's just a word until you do it. It is hard. It's hard also because it bypasses the logical, rational mind, right? So think about it. Someone does something hateful, harmful, hurtful. Forgiveness says yes, and forgive anyway for your sake. But in order to come to that, you really need to understand how it has nothing to do with you. When I say forgiveness, I also don't mean rebuild with that person. I also don't mean reconcile with that person. No. Forgiveness and reconciliation are two different things. And no one said it better than Paul Young, who wrote the book The Shack and did the movie The Shack. And he did a masterclass within the PBT Institute. And he said it so perfectly, and it's really true. When it comes to forgiveness, that's about you. When it comes to reconciliation, rebuilding with that other person, that has so much to do with the other person, right? So you're really making that distinction because, and I may have even shared this on other episodes where I talked about when I was doing my own study, my own research, I was reading other people's studies on forgiveness. And I remember one study that said, if you feel safe and valued and you forgive, you feel better. If you do not feel safe and valued and you forgive, you feel worse. And while that may be true, because forgiveness is just for us, I wrote about it in Trust again, and I upped it a little bit. And I said, because forgiveness is just about us, let's take that same idea and ramp it up a little bit. And it would look like this. If we change the word forgiveness to reconcile, it would sound like this. If I feel safe and valued and I reconcile, I feel better. If I do not feel safe and valued and I reconcile, I feel worse. And isn't that true? So many of us reconcile, but nothing's changed. And you know that saying, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So if there's deep remorse, deep regret, apology, taking full and complete responsibility for those actions, of course, it's going to be much easier to forgive and possibly rebuild something with someone. But if there is not that remorse, regret, apology, responsibility, you still want to forgive for your sake. Only so you release the power that pain has over you. Again, it does not mean you're reconciling. It just means you are releasing that hold that person has over you. Because think about it. Imagine here you are walking around with this anger and this resentment and this bitterness and this pain and this anguish, and someone 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 plus years, whatever, isn't even willing to take responsibility. Are you going to can you imagine the accumulation of decades worth of being in pain because you're waiting around for someone's apology? You're waiting around for someone to have that deep remorse, deep regret. What if it never comes? Are you really willing to compromise your health, your wellness, your well-being, your sanity, your ability to trust in others because you're waiting on that one person to say or do the right thing? You see what I mean? So when I talk about forgiveness, it has nothing to do with the other person. Your life is waiting. So think about how many years things may have been on hold where maybe you didn't even realize it. You were like, okay, this is just the way it is, because you have this withholding forgiveness thing blocking a huge amount of your energy. And now imagine you go through whatever version of we did the 21-day forgiveness journey, whatever it is for you, where you chip away at it. And whatever amount of days it is, you're finally able to release the burden you've been carrying around for so long. Just imagine holding that big boulder and finally setting it down. What would it allow you to do? Who would it allow you to be? What would it allow you to see? Right? So my recommendation, do your own version of the 21-day forgiveness journey and see for you, is it possible to go from angry, bitter, resentful to forgiving and free if you, just you alone, keep some version of a tracker measurement system, and where you choose one experience, just one, and over the course of until you've actually rebuilt it, right? Whether it's rebuild with the person, you go from, are you willing to review it or revisit it? From there, are you willing to release it? From there, are you willing to rebuild yourself or with someone else? I am so hoping you do this, because the transformations we saw over the course of 21 days were so profound. The people, the reviews we were getting, the testimonials about what people experienced in letting go of this burden. Remember, the worst of it happened already. You owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself to know what it feels like to be free. And that happens when you decide to let go of this burden of pain. Of course, within the PBT Institute, we can help you with all of that, whether that's, maybe you're in stage 3 for decades and the injustice is eating you up alive and you have your story, and yes, you're right. And everybody who's been betrayed, yes, they're right. And they can feel heard, validated, understood, but that doesn't move you forward. We need to move through the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough, so you actually take something really painful and do something really good with it. Remember, I didn't do anything you couldn't do. All of our coaches and practitioners didn't do anything you couldn't do. All of our members didn't do anything you couldn't do. They've just made the decision to move through the stages. Forgiveness is a powerful way to do it. Of course, there's more to it, but that's a powerful step. So I invite you to do your own version of a 21-day forgiveness journey, or at the very least, something to move even 1 degree closer to that next stage, because that's 1 degree closer to your next level of health, your next level of wellness, your next level of trust, your next level of freedom. So I hope that helps. I'll see you next time. You need the right tools, support, and the right community to move through the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough. And we have all that within the PBT Institute. So join us at the PBT, as in post-betrayal transformation, thepbtinstitute.com. There's a version of you who's so confident, healthy, peaceful, and happy on the other end of your healing. And we can't wait to help you get there. We got you. Thanks for listening. And here's to your breakthrough.